Anarchy, the podcast exploring sex, relationships, and liberation. I'm your host, Dr. Nicole.
I tried to keep her quiet, but she's screaming inside of me. I tried to keep her hiding, oh, shut up. I tried to keep her quiet, but she's a wild, wild woman.
On today's episode, we have Cora. Join us for a conversation exploring erotic authenticity. Together we talk about coming out later in life, finding belonging within ourselves, and doing the scary thing anyways because discomfort is part of the process. Oh, hello, dear listener, and welcome back to Modern Anarchy. I'm so delighted to have all of you listeners and pleasure activists tuning in from around the world for another episode each Wednesday. My name is Dr. Nicole. I'm a sex and relationship psychotherapist providing psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, author of the Psychedelic Jealousy Guide and the first study on relationship anarchy. And I teach students from around the world how to craft pleasurable sex lives and non-monogamous relationships. Dear listener, it's never too late, right? Cora coming out later in life, later in her 50s. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Y'all, okay. I am so grateful when I run my groups, okay? I get to see folks from across generations. We've had people in their late 50s, their 60s, folks who are in their early 20s, and just the gratitude to know that it's never too late to align your life. Sometimes they're like, it's already slipped past me, right? It's already happened. But the more time you spend grieving that you've already missed out, you just keep staying in that space of not actually moving towards alignment, moving towards the things that bring you pleasure, moving towards the connections, the people, the spaces, right? And so it's just such a beautiful reminder that, dear listener, wherever you are in the world, hey, it's not too late to change your life. It is never too late to make an adjustment, right? And the more time that we spend thinking that, the less time we actually get into that movement and that change and that alignment. And I'm just so grateful for Cora for trusting me, for sharing so vulnerably her story and what it means to be in a mixed, open relationship as well, which, people are always like, does it work? So it's powerful to have a story all about that and the joy and the beauty that Cora is exploring in her life. So thank you, Cora. All right, dear listener, if you are ready to liberate your pleasure, you can explore all of my free resources and worksheets, my free ebook, my free dissertation, my free worksheets on pleasure, on non-monogamy, on relationships. All of that is at modernanarchypodcast.com, linked in the show notes below. That is also where you will find all of the details about my upcoming non-monogamy group program. This is a 16-week group program for folks who are ready to grow, learn, expand in community, exploring what it means to truly build pleasurable non-monogamous relationships. As an educator in this space, I've seen so many discussions of jealousy and jealousy and jealousy and jealousy and how do we deal with jealousy? And yes, that is an important part of it, but there's so many other skills. And what does it mean to come from a pleasure framework, y'all? A pleasure framework. Okay, it's a bit different from the jealousy side. I wrote the Psychedelic Jealousy Guide too, right? So I believe in coming from that side too. But there's a lot in the pleasure. So yeah, if you want to join my 16-week group program with me and students from around the world, all of the details are linked in the show notes below. There is a hyperlink there. You can follow that, schedule an info call with me, and we'll get started for this fall and the end of August. And also, thank you to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you for supporting the show for the last 5 years. I couldn't do it without you. And with that, dear listener, please know that I'm sending you all my love, and let's tune in to today's episode. Dear listener, there's a space already waiting for you where you are invited to let go of every old script about sex and relationships and begin living a life rooted in your pleasure, empowerment, and deep alignment. I'm Dr. Nicole, and this is your invitation to the Pleasure Liberation Groups, a transformative, educational, and deeply immersive experience designed for visionary individuals like you. Together, we'll gather in community to explore desire, expand relational wisdom, and embody the lives we're here to lead. Each session is woven with practices, teachings, and the kind of connection that makes real transformation possible. And I'll be right there with you, guiding the process with an embodied curriculum that supports both personal and collective liberation. This is your invitation into the next chapter of your erotic evolution. Say yes to your pleasure and visit modernanarchypodcast.com/pleasure practice to apply. And so the first question that I love to ask each guest on the show is, how would you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Well, my name is Coco Henri, and I have a story, a long, intense story of a lifetime journey of healing and growing and transforming and finding my way through some really difficult circumstances over and over and over again, sort of like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yeah. The pleasure liberation journey is not easy in this culture by any means. No. And so I'm so delighted to have you on the show today and get to share your story with all of the listeners who I'm sure are going to resonate.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah. So, Coco, I'm curious. When you first were growing up, what were the stories you heard about sex and relationships? What was expected of you?
Both my parents are Eastern European and came to this country. My mom in her early 20s and my dad in his early 30s, and they met here. And so, as a first generation American, I grew up with that influence. And so they had, on the one hand, like very open, like these things are natural, comfort, like being naked around the house. Like I could tell different from like the people around me that had American families. But there was also this like sex is like, for procreation and it feels good. It's natural. It feels good. But it was very like in the physical realm only. There was pretty much no acknowledgement of any other aspect to what sex is, and sexuality wasn't a thing. Like I didn't even know, no idea what that meant.
And so how did that form some of your early experiences in sexuality?
Well, being at the time closeted lesbian, I also had that Eastern European influence of you are there for the man, you're there for the man's pleasure, that kind of orientation to relationship. And of course, it was men. So I liked the idea of love very much and always had a very open heart. And so I think I felt like, okay, well, that's what you have to do to get love. So I'll do that. I'll do it really well.
And so you said closeted. When do you first remember hearing or having longings for queer connection? Was it conscious for you at the beginning there, or when do you recall that?
I'm older than I look. I just turned 59 the other day. So I was coming of age in the 70s and 80s. And so there was no internet. There was no, nothing. There were three choices. You could be straight, you could be gay, or you could be bi. And if you were bi, it was 50-50, and then you had to choose which, what your direction was. That was my understanding. And that was a cultural understanding in many ways too. So when I was exploring all of that, I had no exposure to queer culture whatsoever. None. Certainly not female queer culture. And I remember but he did kiss a few girls,
Yeah.
young and kind of like got scared and didn't know what to make of it. But in high school, there was a bunch of girls that there were rumors that they were doing things with each other, and I was scared. I was
Mm,
just like, "What's that?" I didn't know what to make of it. It was just like
yeah.
it like hit me in such a strange place, and I just I couldn't deal with it at all. And then when I was in college, I went to a school where there was a lot of queer culture, so that was my first like real exposure, and I don't really remember very well like how I got there, but I think at some point I chose like I was like, oh, I'll be bisexual. I'll choose
Mm,
that. That
yeah.
fits. And in that environment it was safe. And I had some lovely experiences with women and young men at that time too. But at 19, I didn't really like come out in the way that I'm coming out now,
Yeah.
but I, if asked, would have definitely said bisexual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So at 19. So from 19 to 58 was identifying as bisexual.
Yeah. Yeah. And the environments that we're in play such crucial roles in terms of our comfort and even often ability to even identify that aspect of ourselves. I know for myself with purity culture, I first felt some of my queer longings, what, in like fourth grade? There was a
Hmm.
makeout scene between two women, and I felt something in my body, but it was so my consciousness was so deep within purity culture that I just thought of that as sinful and turned it away, right? And so I think that's why I asked that question of when did the consciousness come on? I think some of us can have the desires, the longings, but no framework for it yet. And if you do have the framework, and then that deeper question of what is the community that you're in? Is it even safe yet, right? So you're alluding to how important that college community was to really create the conditions for you to feel like you could bring this into your full lived identity in the public way.
Yes, absolutely. And it was not safe in my family of origin.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel like a big need to be out or expressed in that way. I had such bigger problems, really. I come from a background of such severe trauma that just it's so complex, just layers and layers of the trauma itself was so difficult. I'm talking about trauma of war here,
Mm-hmm.
being raised by Holocaust survivors and how that affected me. And so there was a lot to attend to first
Right.
before being able to really tease apart and understand my sexual identity, which is why I come out at 58 as a lesbian and not at 19 as a lesbian.
Right.
But
Right.
so proud of my young self
Yeah.
for doing that much. Like the difference right now, if I were coming out from straight to lesbian in my current life
Mm.
versus bisexual to lesbian, it would be a very, very different situation. So that's kind of like a theme of my journey and my story was like somehow some wise part of me like knew, it was like leaving a breadcrumb trail. It was the
Mm-hmm.
long game for me, like from
Mm.
so young, like
Yeah.
just like paying attention and taking notes and looking around and like noticing and noticing and noticing and like taking in a little bit more and a little bit more to stay intact and to stay like with my true self, but had to put a lot of that into like a very secret black box somewhere far away deep
Yeah.
inside myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When there are other conditions that are more stressful, trauma, different systemic situations that people are going through, it's the classic hierarchy of needs. We just don't really have capacity to even access these areas of ourselves when we're trying to survive with the necessities, right? And so I'm curious when you look back on that journey, you're alluding to the wisdom of pleasure, right? It's always
Mm.
speaking to us. It's always bringing us towards deeper authenticity. What words of wisdom and advice would you say to your younger self who is beginning this journey?
Oh, boy, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I would say, oh, you sweet thing. You sweet thing. You are in an impossible situation. You are doing the only thing you could do to get through this. You keep going. You're gonna get
Yeah.
there. It's
Yeah.
gonna take a while, but I feel like I did the best thing I could to survive
Yeah.
and to survive intact. Like, you know, the pain and the survival was that so I'm raised by these people who are completely traumatized
Mm,
and from World War II, from being Holocaust survivors, from immigrating to a whole other country as adults and
hmm
starting life all over again. And they did the best they could with what they had, but it wasn't a time where they could really like get support, or people were talking about trauma
You're
and
right.
the nervous system
Yeah.
and all these things, and
Absolutely.
it wasn't in their mentality to do that. And so how did they survive? How did they cope and manage? My father specifically did so through embracing the philosophy of Ayn Rand of
Mm,
objectivism. And that's like heavy duty capitalist teaching, and it's all about the mind and morality and very similar to purity culture. Like when I hear stories about that, I think there's some overlap there,
okay.
and for sure overlap of cults. Like this was a kind of a cult. It was an independent cult. Like it was just our little family of four. I have a brother, and that's it. And I also, both my parents are only children, so I don't have any
Mm,
aunts, uncles, or cousins.
interesting. Yeah.
So it was like I was kind of plopped into the world from nowhere. So I don't speak their language, their original language. I've never been to Poland. I don't know anything about or very little about Polish culture. Judaism was complicated. They acknowledged themselves as cultural Jews, but there was like total like evangelical atheism.
hmm
So there was no spiritual life.
Mm,
There was no community. There was no like even watching of group sports. It was like tennis or ice skating or something, like
mm.
this really extreme like individualism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So extreme. So I got this message on the one hand of just like be your own person, think for yourself, like very directly given those messages. And then on top of that was the truth, which was think for yourself, but like us, like
Mm,
basically it needs to look like this. And so
yeah.
anything that slipped out or was different from that would be criticized, judged. I would be gaslit. I would be scapegoated. And this is just layers on top of each other, one after another, all
Mm,
the time.
mm.
And so that's why I would say that to my little self, like, honey,
Yeah.
like how that's fucking impossible.
Yeah.
And and so it was like I just learned very quickly like what to keep hidden, and hiding was a real ethic in that family because not only were they Holocaust survivors, my father what is known as a hidden child, which means he wasn't in concentration camps. He was literally in hiding in a closet, in an attic, in some other space, and sometimes alone, sometimes with a parent, sometimes with a stranger, endlessly. I mean, it ended up being 4 years, and those ages, 7 to 11, that's developmentally so
Yeah.
significant
Huge.
to not be around any other children or teachers or anything, and to just and what the imagination is like at that age. And so just what he had to do to survive, like you just have to do whatever you have to do. So I both at once feel like pain and anger and sadness for how all of that affected me, at the same time so much compassion and understanding for why. Like it's both. It's both. And I've learned through a lot of hard work
Yeah.
and internal, examination and learning about all kinds of healing modalities, how to do that for
Mm,
real. Like that wasn't always true. There was a long periods of anger. There was long periods of self-suppression and making him right and me wrong. And,
mm.
so I've been through it all, but that environment made it so difficult
Yeah.
to trust myself. So it was like, or knowing what's true and what's real. And I've had to do quite a lot of work to feel like I belong to myself. I've lived most of my
Mm,
life with this feeling like I don't belong to myself. I don't
mm,
belong to myself. And for so many reasons, like kind of walking around through life, like, is this right? Is this the right way to be?
mm.
What am I supposed to say? Is this the right thing? Am I supposed to do that? Yeah. So to have arrived in a place where that is quieted down to like nothing
Yeah.
feels miraculous to me and feels like freedom that I did not know existed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy that you're there and
Yeah, me
continuing
too.
to explore what that there means.
I feel like I'm at the beginning of my
Yeah.
life, on a certain level.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. The humble beginner's mindset for a lifetime. There's always more. And so I can imagine, that ability to know who you are, that's exceptionally difficult in such a complicated area because of the cultures that we live in around sexuality, right? If you're already struggling with knowing who you are generally, in this area that has so many scripts, so many expectations, it's even harder, which is why I love the work that I do, because it's truly
Mm.
life changing. And I don't mean that in the most, overselly, dramatic way. Like, it actually is life changing when you're able to really be with your body, know what your desires are, know how to communicate them, and then know how to connect with others in that. That is life-changing work, and it does come back to that erotic connection that we have with folks. And so what was the biggest turning point for you to be able to really step into that? I know you mentioned college, right? We're there, we're connecting with the group of the other people who are making it safe to be who you are. What were some of the big turning points you experienced?
Well, it's not an easy answer because another really big part of my story is that this background that I just explained of my upbringing resulted in serious mental illness for me.
Mm, yeah.
So I was grappling with that.
Mm,
So I was in a fragmented state for most of my life. I finally got diagnosed and treated at age 45. So
mm,
up until that time, I was doing the best I could with, uh, yeah, like a very inter because of that hiding culture and because of the environment that I grew up in, all my distress would tend to go inward in
mm,
deep inside. So I was struggling emotionally, mentally, like all the time. And found these touchstones along the way. I guess these are sort of turning points. They're sort of early
yeah,
roots
of
of
course.
where it finally became like about my sexuality.
Right.
But I raised three children and homeschooled them for almost 17 years and worked as a professional organizer for a while and did all these different things. And like wherever I could find health or like self-expression in a safe way, like I went all out. I would
Mm,
just go, as full as I could. But if I look back now, I feel like my life was very much in pieces or in parts and fragments. Like it wasn't one cohesive whole of a person or a life in many ways. So and I was always working on myself, like
mm, mm-hmm,
from the moment I realized that was a thing that a person could
mm,
do. It was
mm-hmm.
like you know, like the New Age movement in the 80s was
Yeah,
really hit me hard. I had like every book and
yeah,
discovered the joy and power of ritual and intuition and
mm-hmm.
psychic abilities and all those things were just like this exists because I grew up in this
Yeah,
like such a rigid environment of obedience and masculine values
mm,
and old-fashioned values like
mm,
is Eastern European mentality. And yeah, so I really like in a lot of ways had to raise myself because
mm,
there like interdependence was not valued. It was considered a moral failing to
mm,
ask for help or have emotions, or spirituality was for stupid people. Like anything that I brought that was genuine would just be shut down so hard.
mm,
And not
yeah,
just like not acknowledged, but actually like obliterated,
Wow.
like torn apart, and that just would feel, yeah. So sorry, I lost my train of thought a little
No,
bit.
no. I mean, I am imagining how hard it was then to connect to your erotic self with all this.
Yeah, beyond
Yeah.
it was shut down. It was I had what you could call erotic anesthesia. Like
Mm.
I didn't I didn't even know what I was missing because
Mm-hmm.
yes, in the hierarchy of
Mm-hmm.
needs, like it was so low
Yeah.
down. It was just I was just trying to like get a grip
Yeah.
and keep it together and keep going with like this tremendous amount of internal suffering all the time. And so yeah, just like sexuality was not. I remember thinking like how the back of the mind like kind of throws forth a thought every now and
Mm.
then, especially when you're closeted. I bet
Yeah.
there are so many closeted people who could relate to this,
Mm.
especially after they come out, like, oh, that little voice that said this little thing. And and it would say one of the things it would say was, oh, like if it was about sexuality, it'd be like, oh, that's I don't get to have that. Like, I don't
Mm.
get to have that. And like that matter of fact, just this
Right.
like pure acceptance of like when I look back, I think it was that feeling of like, I'm so glad somebody can do this. I'm so glad there are people who can do this for themselves. Like, I don't get to do that, but I'm
Yeah.
so glad for them. And like that, just such acceptance if I don't get to do that. It
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
anger or longing or anything. It was
Mm.
just like
Mm.
a
Mm-hmm.
kind of all across the board shutdown. Part of why it took so long to get diagnosed with illness was because I was highly functional in
Mm.
a lot of ways, like
Right.
externally. So, and doing a great job, and then
Mm-hmm.
but inside just other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Which is some of the hardest times to diagnose, right? Or really identify when we can really perform under capitalism, but not necessarily be finding pleasure or joy or peace in the internal. And so when you were in this chapter of your life, were you in a monogamous context? What's your relational world looking like?
Hmm. I met my male, I would describe heteroqueer partner in college, young. We were
Yeah.
very young. And then this was like shortly after I had had some same-sex experiences. I had already kind of figured out or like decided I was bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him, and it was this like really profound, deep connection. It wasn't exactly lustful, like it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't it was spiritual really
Mm.
in the end, and it was we shared our Venn diagram of shared values is highly overlapping. We come from similar backgrounds, we're the same age, we come from the same part of the country,
Mm.
we met at this college together, so we're both musicians and artists.
Yeah.
um there was just a lot of unusual shared things, and there was this feeling of recognition. Like I felt like when I met him, it felt like I felt I was at home when we were together. And these were the two things that made me feel like I want to spend my life with you.
Mm.
I feel like I'm at home when I'm with you, and I loved I loved the person I became in his presence. I love
Mm.
what our connection brought out of me.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up getting married quite young. I was 23 and he was 24. And we preceded that engagement by we graduated from college and we traveled across the country in a tiny little
Yeah.
car.
Cute.
And like we're together like all the time. And so we did
Yeah.
all the fighting and all the talking. And
Mm.
at the end of that, we thought, well, either relationship is so intense, either we should break up or like get engaged. And so we
Mm.
decided to get
Yeah, yeah,
engaged.
yeah. What a
Um,
dichotomy.
and when we did, we spent the thing we cared about the most in planning the wedding. I wasn't one of these like dreaming about weddings, like that wasn't my culture. I
Yeah.
didn't really have any actually the first wedding I ever went to was my own. So I had
Mm. Okay.
no
Wow.
no real
Sure.
expectations. But the thing that was the most important to both of us was the vows. And we
Yeah.
spent like 6 months writing the vows together, word by word, absolutely crafting this, with the understanding that there was a lot we couldn't know, and that if we're
Mm-hmm.
looking to be together for a lifetime, like we have to build that into the vows
Mm,
because we can't know what we don't know.
right.
And so the vows are beautiful and they stand
Mm,
true, and we have repeated them to each other many times since, and they allow for the kind of experience we're having now I'm going to say this, I'm learning how to say this in one sentence, as a spiritually based, growth oriented, mixed orientation, open relationship
yeah.
of
Beautiful.
37 years now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. What a journey and ongoing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that would have never expected to
Yeah.
be where I am now or where we are. And it's very much a work in progress, but enough in progress to be able to talk about it
Yeah.
publicly for the first time.
Yes, here you are. We can enjoy all the messiness, the magic of our humanness here in this space. And I know the things that we share are things that so many other people will resonate with, just the
Mm.
vulnerability of what it's like to be always evolving, messing up, growing, learning. And so when you say mixed orientation, open relationship, what does that mean for you and your partner?
Well, we started off monogamous
Yeah.
for many, many years, and he knew that I was bisexual. He knew that the truth was, even though I felt because of the times and my limited exposure and knowledge, like, okay, I have to choose. I've chosen man. I don't know what happens to this attraction for women. It wasn't a world where you could be married to a man and have queer culture
Yeah.
anyway, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I know being bisexual, can be really hard to be in a straight facing relationship and feel like you qualify to be in a queer space or to feel comfortable in a queer space. Like, it's so hard. It's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
hope that changes. I hope that is changing. I hope that
Mm-hmm.
women who are monogamously partnered with a man but are attracted to women have some way of feeling that daily in their lives, because otherwise people just will assume that. I mean, I'm in that situation too. I'm in a straight facing relationship. So yeah, there needs to be more room, which is one of the main reasons I'm on this podcast today, which
Yeah.
is to just like offer, like, here's an example. Here's an example that I needed, that I didn't see. But and I'm sure I'm not alone. So, those people need to know, like, you can create it from scratch. You can make it up. You
Yeah.
can throw away all the scripts and
Yeah.
figure out how to do it yourself. But it is hard. It is absolutely hard to do without
Mm-hmm.
community support.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge part of my dissertation research with relationship anarchy. When you throw away all of the scripts of relationships, and that includes the best attempts we can have at erasing the unconscious ones, because damn, you throw out the paint by numbers, but it's still in the unconscious, in
Mhm.
the longings and the fears and the things that we have. And so when you give yourself your best shot at doing that, releasing it, which again is a lifelong practice, we'll do it till we
Mm.
die. That brings you into the space of the artist moment where you truly are painting the rest of your life. And it's no longer a paint by numbers, it's a blank canvas. And that can be really overwhelming because it's like, well, what do I do over it? Like I used to have this clear vision and now I've got all of the options. And so I find it so beautiful how the abundance, it's abundance of joy, but everything has a light and a dark. So right there is the fear of the abundance also at that same time. And so it sounds like for you, you've really done a lot of that work in your partnership of throwing off the scripts and getting to design your own connection. And so when you're first wanting this sort of change in your dynamic, do you bring it up? Does he bring it up? What does that conversation look like? Does it go well? Mine certainly didn't when I first stepped into this world. Like, how did it go for the two of you?
it was very organic. I think our
Okay.
story is unusual that way. It wasn't one person really bringing it to the other.
Mm,
It was more like, so as I talked about before, this like erotic amnesia, like I had, as long as that was in place, I was just kind of, I was didn't feel like I was missing anything. I didn't
right.
really, I was living that life. And then what our the pandemic happened and our kids left the nest, and a little bit more suddenly than planned because
Mm,
of just how that affected things.
right.
So it was suddenly just the two of us after 27 years.
Wow.
And but in the pandemic, so it was like it was just like time for reevaluation, or it was like we don't have to be together in the same way that having kids inspires you to keep going in that direction. And we were committed, and it wasn't like we were questioning that, except the sexuality piece was just starting to rise to the surface
Mm,
more. I had started to spend time in an online queer space, related to the pandemic, like support, and there was a queer meeting, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm queer. I'll just it was like
yeah.
there was no thought behind it. It was like I just found
Mm,
myself in a queer space as a queer person for the first time. And then that was like where I first felt like, ooh, I'm embarrassed to share that I'm partnered with a man. I tried to like keep that on the
yeah,
DL as long
sure,
as I
sure.
could. And but I was like, really it was a really good, safe way to feel my own queerness in my own home. I could click off, I could whatever, just feel what it was like to be in that space. So that was kind of one thing that started some forward motion in that area. And then I think we were just having honest conversations about like, I remember just casually saying one time, like, if there's things that you want to experience sexually that I can't provide, I'd be open to like just finding ways to explore that, like a very like low key, like just tossing that
Yeah.
out. And I think then there was another low key and another low key thing. And then as we started to really address it more directly and experience like the fact that I was a closeted lesbian the whole time, and that's going to show up in all kinds of ways. um,
Mm,
he kind of outed me from the outside in, really is where that started. And I had a lot of work to do
yeah.
to really come out from the inside out. So there was basically, from that first like queer online meeting to being out, was about 4 years, and 4 really intense, confronting compulsory heterosexuality, confronting internalized homophobia. I was so at odds with myself. I mean, I did like,
Mm.
there was a little period during those 4 years where I was trying to do like conversion therapy on
Oh, wow.
myself.
No way. Damn.
Like this can't like push it down harder, push it, like the more I saw it,
Yeah.
the more I pushed it down, and that didn't work. And then, oh, and so the thing that really kind of blew it open was lesbian TikTok.
I love
Um,
this for you. Amazing.
So,
Yes.
sure, sure. Me and like, thousands of other closeted
Yeah.
lesbians who are like,
Yeah.
oh shit, right? How does the algorithm know before I
You're like, stop.
do?
You looked for too many seconds and it knew. It was like, boom.
I mean, really, like it was quite stunning. Why was I even on TikTok? It was, I feel like, with three grown kids, like I want to know their world. I
Ah,
want to
sure.
know what they're looking at. I want to, even if I don't like fully participate, I want to be aware. So that was my thinking. I was like, TikTok, everybody's talking about TikTok. Let me
Mm.
go check that out and see what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
And so within no time at all, like my feed was 75% lesbian stuff. And I was like, could not get enough of it. Could not
Yeah.
get enough. And it was like, and queer stuff as well. And I, since whatever that day was till now, have watched thousands, tens of thousands. I mean, so many. I was just like,
Yeah.
it was like lifeblood. I just
Good.
couldn't get enough.
Yes.
And was just like, something was resonating. Something was like, I felt alive. I can understand what these women are saying, or, and I was terrified. And then I was like, I mean, I went through like a excruciatingly painful year of those four
Mm,
years where I couldn't even write in my own journal. Like I was too scared
mm,
to see any words on paper or to admit these things to myself. I was so stuck. I was really doing everything I could to like push it away and not think about it, and yet it was bubbling up all the time. And then I had to create a like a pressure valve because it was
mm,
just too much. And so I created in my head, I created Queer Town. And
mm.
Queer Town was a place inside of me where I could give myself permission to engage with this part of myself
Yeah.
and just like with because I was dealing with mind control. This is a big, I sort of lost my way earlier, but what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
share about my upbringing, this response, the way that my father dealt with his own trauma was to embrace this really extreme philosophy and then just shove it down our throats. And
Yeah.
it was really coercive mind control. My mind was not my own, and I was not allowed to think my own
Mm,
thoughts in my own way. And so it was really tight.
yeah.
I really had to deprogram myself to come out. And it's not so easy when it's this weird specific philosophy and living in a cult of four people and like there's no help group specifically for this. And so I feel like my if you put my story into a movie, like the exact story of my experience is the Shawshank Redemption.
Mm,
I was the guy that was falsely put into prison, made prison as nice as he possibly could while he was there, paid a lot of attention, made some good connections, and chip, just chipping away at that hole. And
mm-hmm.
like that was my experience. And so I had to free my mind to be able to free my sexuality. And
Yeah.
that's a hard job at,
Oh, yeah.
50 something years old. And and so, but it was a lot, I was chipping away since I was a child, just really doing that. And so Queer Town was a really big kind of explosion in that deprogramming process because I made a space
Mm,
just because I couldn't stand, I felt like I was going to explode if I didn't do
mm.
that. And so I made this space for myself. And then eventually Queer Town, little like a year or so later, turned into Lesbian Town, where I was
Ah,
like, you can be a lesbian in your
yeah.
mind. And that was like big liberation just internally with myself. And then I also part of the process of deprogramming and coming alive and coming into myself in these ways was moving from the mandate that I was raised with for conclusive, what I've labeled as conclusive thinking,
Mm,
where like, be in any situation, your options for expressing yourself were total confidence, whether you had it or not, like with backup explanations,
mm,
or hide.
mm.
That was it. There was nothing in between. And so for like so extreme, black and
Yeah.
white thinking. And so that's no way to live. That's so it's so claustrophobic to your creativity and your sense of
Yeah.
self and all these things. And so once I identified conclusive thinking as a massive like through line through my mental experience, I could start to dismantle it because I could see it and I could name it.
Right.
And so from this realization about conclusive thinking, I welcomed and developed what I called gradational thinking.
Mm,
Pondering, musing, considering, imagining, wondering,
yeah.
on and on. Like all of that's allowed. It's
Yeah.
allowed.
Yeah.
And as a teacher and as a mother, I've been was able to teach that to other people before I could give that to myself even.
Sure.
I was like, very sensitive to like I for the longest time felt like, well, I don't, save yourselves kind of energy. Like I can help you. Like it's too late for me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
trying, but
Yeah.
but I have a lot of information to like help you. And so that was developed externally in that way, but then I put it on myself. And so when I developed gradational thinking and permission for that, that's what led to Queer Town, which led to Lesbian Town, which
Mm,
led to like, you know, coming out. But it
right.
it was a long, hard journey and a very unlikely one, really. And
Hmm.
especially being in a relationship where the bones are good, the connection is real, it's deep, it's not, my partner is it not a very typical man. We're both artists. He's very like mycelial
Mm,
minded and pretty psychedelic person, highly
yeah.
neurodivergent. Like we're just two freaks that
Yeah.
understand each other in the best of ways. And so the and we've survived like these phoenixes rising from the ashes from like crisis after crisis,
Mm,
like really like unbelievable. This story, it reads like a Forrest Gump kind of
mm,
experience when you get into all the tangents of like the things that have happened,
mm,
and that we've like come out together the stronger for. So,
yeah.
if you discover or realize that you're a lesbian in a straight facing relationship, what is the protocol? Get a divorce. That's what you do. That's what
Mm,
everyone does, or most people do. And so it kept me stuck for a long time because I
yeah.
don't want a different life. I mean, this is my family, my partner, we share so many things together,
Yep.
and I'm a lesbian, and
Yeah.
he loves lesbians, not
Yeah.
not in a fetish way, but in a like real like saphophile way. Like he's always
Mm,
gotten along with lesbians and
yeah.
really sees a sacredness around women loving women. And so
Hmm.
we've never been better,
Mm,
oddly enough. Like the kind of communication that's been needed to get to a place of harmony and opening of the
hmm.
relationship in this really like profound way. We've really done the work, and we've always done the work. That's the thing
Yeah.
too. It's like this is a partnership where we've we've put in thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of conversation about
Yeah.
this relationship. So I just can't, it's like so here I sit with you in this place of multiplicity of I love this human. We are partners. We've been through so
Mm,
much together. He's a man. That's complicated. And I'm a lesbian and I really want to be expressed as a lesbian and know this part of myself for real. And so talk about, relationship anarchy, like we're inventing it, like
yeah.
we are making all the rules and we're deciding like what this means. And the good news for us is that our whole life has been like that. We have
Mm,
not been lived any kind of life that would be recognizable, like typically, like we've always lived outside of the box and we've
yeah.
always made it up. So we have a long history, even our raising our children and educating our children. We did that ourselves. So there's a lot of creativity inherent in our connection and desire for truth and healing and honesty and beauty and authenticity. So we're adjusting and
Yeah.
there's not a lot like if a couple's been together for as long as we have 37 years or 50 years or 60 years, it's like this big accomplishment and congratulations,
Mm,
which on the one hand it absolutely is. But like, is that the prize? Is that the prize that you get for just, and I'm sure there are many truly happy partnerships that are long term like that. But I would guess that those that are satisfying are the ones where the people grew and let the
yep.
relationship
Exactly.
evolve and
Mm-hmm.
encourage it to evolve. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is just how ours has evolved. And it kind of it fits the complexity of the life we've lived. It's, I don't know if I like would choose it exactly, like from the outside in, but there's a lot of opportunity in this situation to to be so authentic and to be so real because there is no script to
Mm-hmm.
follow
Mm-hmm.
with this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there are so many people who are in relationships that are miserable, unhappy, and they hit that milestone. And often that I feel like comes from a value of the effort that you've put, the commitment. Like, even though I'm unhappy, I'm still committed to this person. And for, the beginning of marriage was not a romantic institution, it was a legal institution and passing down of property and historically controlling women as part of that property. Right. And so the ideas of marriage and romance and joy and all of that was often separated to the lover outside of the marriage. Right. And it was only very recently in our culture that we brought those things together. And there's still a lot of people who come from that script and say, like, it's the comedy scenes you see all the time in stand up where they're like, I hate my husband, but what are you gonna do? And so it's such an interesting space that people exist in. But if their values are commitment, then there it is, right? And I love what you're speaking to, which is how can we be committed both to ourselves and the relationship? And that is going to ebb and flow over the years, right? You couldn't have predicted that you'd be in this space in any way, shape, or form. And also, you're creating scripts outside of the norm. Like you said, a lot of people have, it's very common to have a situation like this where one person identifies that they're queer and they want to explore all of that. And you're right. Often a lot of people at that moment, they're like, oh, I guess we got a divorce. I guess we have to separate. At times it can be really, really dark. People won't speak to each other. It can be real. This is why I love working with couples in that space of like, how do we build the security so that you can continue this relationship in a new way, which often involves a lot of grief. Because if you had a vision of what the next 20, 40, 50, whatever years looked like, you got to grieve that is no longer happening and show up in the present moment, which is what is unfolding right here, right now. Okay, what's the new storyline? And so that is such a difficult process for people. And so I'm really grateful that you're here speaking to the possibility of that, because when our psychology, right, we exist in relationship to other people. There's the individual that exists, but the feminist movement would always talk about it as the self in relation, right? The words I'm using right now were created from Anglo-Saxons, blah, 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 blah. I had teachers who taught me, right? Like, I am a living, breathing culmination of all of that, right? So every one of us is breathing in our independence as well as our interdependence, right? And so when you're stepping into something like TikTok, right, you're getting that space where you're seeing all of these other lesbians bringing you their energy, their concepts, their ideas. And we start to integrate the voices of the people that are around us, good, bad, or otherwise. So be careful, like
Yes.
those negative voices. We really want to be careful. Who are they? Do I
Yes.
want that close? Maybe not. Got it. But you're on TikTok, you're taking all of that in, right? And so you're getting new ways. It's why I'm so passionate about this podcast, because I know I get listeners who write in from like rural Iowa and they're like, I have no queer community. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that you can tune into conversations like this and know that another way is possible when you don't see it in your streets or in the people there, right? Because that's where the suffering comes, when you're like, no one else is like this. No one's ever had this before. I'm so broken. I'm so wrong. And then you hear one other person tell that story and you're like, wait, there's community here. And then we start to feel normal in that. And so for you to come here into this space, right, you're telling another story of what's possible in terms of it doesn't have to end in divorce. You can have grounded conversations. And that's not to say there was probably conflict and days of crying. I could imagine lots of complexity.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes. There was the raging anger months. There was the like crying every day month. We've gone through all these phases, but um, one thing the thing really that helped us tremendously. I must make a plug for the amazing Dr. Jolie Hamilton,
Oh, yes. My mentor,
who
yes.
yeah, she's amazing. And her podcast is Playing with Fire. And you can find out more about her there. But if I must, for anyone who is in a situation similar to mine, or anyone who is wanting to open their relationship in a really like thorough, self-responsible, honoring of the relationship kind of way, her process of a year-long program,
I
meeting every
know.
single week in community, was a game changer for us. We were ready, like we were ready for her medicine, and it made all the difference because I think that's another reason why people in a situation like mine do end up in divorce is because it's very nuanced. Like especially if you've been together decades,
Oh
how do you dismantle, or shift a lifetime of relating in a certain way to a whole other way, and
yeah.
so some of
Yeah.
the things that that would be good for any couple, not just someone who wants to open, but, you know, teasing apart enmeshment versus differentiation and really like, working through that and identifying desires and your own desires and really like there's so many wonderful things. And that was showed up at the exact moment we needed it. And we were voracious learners in that
Yeah.
environment and continue to be. And that was essential. I don't know where we'd be without that
Right.
teaching and those tools for
Mm-hmm.
having really hard conversations and
Yeah.
dismantling defensiveness and really having healthy repair protocols for rupture and difficulties. And we've been practicing and
Mm.
practicing and practicing. And so applying it to all kinds of situations, not just opening of the relationship. And that's why I say like our relationship has never been better because one of the advantages of being in a non-traditional relationship structure is that you have to work at this level of of detail and
Yep.
diligence and skills building and transition skills and hinge skills and oh my gosh, so many things that we were
Yes.
already intuitively doing a lot of them over the years. So it was also validating to meet Ken and Jolie. Jolie's partner is also on the podcast and part of her teaching environment. And like it was like a recognition of like, oh, these folks, these are
Yeah.
relationship warriors. We're relationship warriors. Let's see what we can learn here.
Yeah.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, for we're learning how to have shorter conversations now, but for many years, like we could easily have a 10-hour, 14-hour conversation about our communication or
Totally.
relating, so we've just trimmed things down and learned how to
Right.
do it better. But yeah, so that's been a really huge piece of how do you forge a path that doesn't yet exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, many hour-long conversations. And it can be so good when you're excited about it. You're like, wow, we can do this and this and this. And then when you're in conflict, that same sort of really thoughtful, long
Yeah.
conversations can come out. And we're going to take a break today. We're going to take a break. We can't go do this, get a walk, come back. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious for you, you're speaking to the possibilities, the ways to create and design your own relationships, the communities, the teachers that spoke to you. Can you speak to the pleasure that you're experiencing in this space? What does your world look like? That listener who's tuning in and is still grasping for the vision of what could be possible. What's the pleasure you're experiencing now?
I love that question.
Yeah.
The first answer would have to be sanity.
I love that. Yeah.
And that is delicious to have the absence of this anxiety in my body, to have
Mm-hmm.
quiet in my head is amazing. And it just there's so much more room and internal spaciousness and room for self-expression and being in my authentic sexual identity and embracing that has been quite the unfolding, especially after being torqued for 58 years. As I said, it was a 4-year process to really like finally like really feel like I'm owning this and this is who I
Yeah.
am. That was a really torturous, excruciatingly painful process. Probably the most difficult thing I've ever done, and I have done some really
Mm.
difficult things in this life. So the pleasure is for the first time in my life, being able to trust myself.
Mm.
That is exquisite because in this childhood environment, I was basically
Yeah.
taught intensely and forced, don't trust yourself. Trust this outside thing. Trust this way I'm telling you to be. Trust this way that we decide that the world works. And there was not, um, it was like I could not trust I didn't know what was true. I didn't know what was real. I
Yeah.
knew something was wrong. I knew that there was hypocrisy in what was coming toward me. I had evidence in the world around me that other things existed, and it just took decades to be safe enough to like finally dismantle it fully. But the now being able, it's like there it is. I'm just
Mm.
right there. I feel like one person. I feel like a cohesive
Yeah.
self. I feel like I am experiencing what I would describe as existential coherence,
Mm.
which is not something I have, it's not a return to anything. I never had it. I never had it. And um, so I feel like reborn. I feel like I'm experience like my birthday was a few days ago and I realized like, oh, my first gay birthday. And
Ah.
it's like everything is like my first gay this and my first gay that. And like each one is just such a joy because there's like I just get to be me. I get to be
Ah.
me.
Yeah.
That is I'll never get over that.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, the
So there's a lot
freedom.
of pleasure in that. A lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to
Yeah.
the part of you that was afraid to journal, right, about any of this, let alone to come onto a podcast with thousands of people tuning in. I know we can't see them right now, but they
They're
exist.
there.
Yeah, what do you want to say to that younger part that is terrified to write in the journal?
Oh, I love you.
Mm.
I know how hard it is. I am holding you. Your future self is holding you. I've got you. There's not like there's not even like, when you come out later in life, whenever that later is, there's grief because
Mm.
of what could have been or what you could have missed. And there's absolutely that for me. But I've done the math. I've gone over it in my head thousands of times, like this couldn't have unfolded any other way or
Yeah.
any sooner. It's just this is my story, how it worked out for me. So
Mm-hmm.
like when I go like thinking about like, comforting that earlier self, I would just want to say I love you to her because
Yeah.
she just kept going. I just kept going. I've done that my whole life. It's another foot in front of the other,
Mm-hmm.
another, like, and I've come to understand about myself, like, I'm really brave.
Yeah, hell yeah. Look at you
I'm
here. Yeah.
I'm really
Mm-hmm.
brave and courageous, and it doesn't mean that I constantly do things that are really hard for me and really
Yeah.
scary, and I just do them anyway. And
Yep.
I always grow and learn from them, and things don't always give me what I thought they were going to, but I, yeah, I want to, as I discover like who I truly am and all this, it's not an add-on, it's a falling away.
Mm.
It's a falling
Yeah.
away of all the performative parts and all the parts that the protective parts and the
Right.
parts that, developed to keep me safe. And it's like as I step more and more into my center and come experience life from my center, it's that when it falls away, I just see like there I am, there I am. I
Mm.
don't have to like effort that. It's just there. And
Yeah.
that's so different and new for me. And
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about anyone who's listening who's like in the closet right now or struggling in this kind of a way. And I would just, when I was looking at all those TikTok videos, just like wanting to hear, like, what's on the other side? What's on the
Mm.
other side? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Like, why? It's just too hard. And I would say it is worth it. And it's like, it's miraculous for me to be like anywhere out loud saying that on this side. And there's much more to go for me. But I will say that the difference between living, and I didn't even understand, like, there's always this word, like authentic, like
Mm,
authentic self, like, what's so great
right.
about that? Or what the hell is
Right.
that? Or why do I need to like blow up my life to have that? Like, my life is good, but the difference is so profound, and it is like you get to be you. You just get to be you.
Hmm.
And it feels really good to it's so empowering, it's so potent. I feel like supercharged because of my
Yeah.
age. Like, ooh, I'm really like I have like a lot of time to make up for and feel like, yeah, it's just an incredible feeling to be yourself. And along the way, like, some of the other mental constructs that I created for myself along the way was song. I would just write these songs for
Yeah.
myself
Beautiful.
and sing them to myself. And one of them was like a kind of like hard rock energy, and the lyrics
Nice.
were, you get to be you, whatever the fuck that is. And I would just sing that over and over again to myself, like just opening that door, just like another little crack and another little crack
Mm,
of like, that seems good. Like, I'm just gonna move in that direction. And I guess that's something I would say to my younger self and to anyone who's going through a similar struggle or path, is like, you don't have to blow the door open all at once. You can open it a crack. You can even close it back up a little bit. You're not,
yeah.
you decide. And here's something else that I wish that I had understood a little better earlier on, which was, you come out to yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
That's where
Mm-hmm.
it starts. And I caught on to that at some point, and I sat with that. Like, once I kind of flipped that switch, I felt a lot more ease, and I felt a lot more spaciousness and freedom to just
Mm,
be with that and like really let myself come out to myself all the way,
mm.
and to also give myself permission to, maybe I'm never going to share this with
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah.
or maybe I probably am, but I'm going to wait until it feels like just the right moment to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
will know. And I just gave myself permission, like, you're going to know when it's
Right.
time.
When it's time.
And so that was a huge gift. And I wish to offer that to anyone who needs to hear that. Like, you get to come out to yourself first, and that's its own beautiful,
Hmm.
painful, miraculous process. And
Yeah.
it takes time. It's not we don't undo these scripts and these socializations and these difficult circumstances overnight. It is truly a process of years, usually,
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And it involves so many back and forth. As you were speaking, I was remembering being in my cognitive behavioral class in my doctoral training, and there was an example, case vignette of someone who was really struggling to determine their sexual orientation. And I remember being in class and people were like, oh, like, because the theoretical client was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And some of my colleagues were like, oh, we should diagnose this person with OCD. They're really thinking, they're really caught on, they're really caught, really spinning, really spinning, really spinning. And I fought in that class like hell. I was like, that is absolutely fucking absurd. Are any of you queer? Any queer person in this room knows how many times you've,
Yeah.
am I straight? Am I a lesbian? Am I bisexual? Queer? Pan? What is, maybe all of it's a lie. Maybe I was lied to my whole life. What is like that process is not something to be diagnosed. If anything, let's diagnose the system that put us in this container, right? So like my fire was just flying out of that room because it's such a
Yay.
process. Yeah, right? Like it's such a, how dare you want to diagnose someone for, like, that is, unless it gets some insurance benefits and their therapy can be covered. Hey, okay, I'm here for that conversation. Okay. But like, can we do something else that's not as
Yeah.
pathologizing for a clear problem with the systems, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that process, you come out to yourself first, right? And then we find the community spaces where we can be seen, because that is such an essential piece of that. I remember the first time I came out publicly, it was for a class in school, and I was terrified. I'm pretty confident I cried during that experience, just being like, yeah, so I'm gay. And everyone's like, wow, that's great, Nicole. And I was like, you're right. It is great. Thank you. Thank you, But you're just like shaking the first time you do it, depending on your context. Purity culture for me was not supportive, right? And so, yeah, it's such a process that you have to have compassion for yourself, all of the spirals that we go through, and also know that like pleasure is a practice. There's a reason why I call my private practice that, because as you said, you just kept putting one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And then when you look back on your lifetime, it's like yoga. I also teach yoga, right? Like I couldn't touch my toes when I first started. Far from it. You know what I mean? And now I can. And it's not like I woke up one day and just touched my toes. It was every small centimeter and centimeter and centimeter and centimeter. And so when people come in and they're just like, I'm so far from my pleasure, it can be hard to like bring that vision to them of like, there will be a day when you're connected to it. Yeah. And it's going to take time, but we're going to put you in the containers and the community and the support, and that change is possible, right? Like you're proof that change is possible, that abundant love is possible. And we need things like song. For me, it was Can't Help But Fly. If you haven't heard that song, highly recommend. And I was so sad that when I went back to it, like they don't have additional albums. It came out many years ago. They had the comments turned off on YouTube because I can only imagine what they were getting. But man, I would listen to that song again and again. And the days that I was terrified, straight up crying about non-monogamy, I would listen to that song again and I'd be like, I am going to get there, because they'd talk about like compersion and being happy for their partners. And I was not happy for my partners. And I want to be very clear, like when you come from that environment, it's hard, right? And so I would keep listening and singing. And part of the beauty of song is that we're bringing somatic regulation into it. When my clients are activated, I recommend finding a song, because when you sing, you have to really control the breath. And so it can be great to put off the panic attack or the anxiety that's coming on, because you're working with the body and the breath. And so, yeah, to find songs that are aligned with that, which is things that we've done spiritually for ancient years and years and years of the human existence. Yeah, that's all the magic sauce of this process, right? Community, song, dance, and trust. It's a lot of trust that we're going to keep going. And then there's that day where your pleasure feels miles away, and then it comes back. And then there's a day where your pleasure has completely changed. The thing you thought was so clear is now no longer doing it for you. And then you end up in a new place and you're like, well, what's around here? And there's no use in grieving that whole time of where to go, because I've been there too. It's like, what's right here, right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think titration is a really big part of this whole process of wherever one is shifting from some kind of state of like, I do not get to have pleasure, pleasure is not for me, I can't deal with it, or whatever it is, to like fully expressed pleasure. That's a process, and whatever your story is to getting there is absolutely a process. And and what you described too, that resonated for me about like that kind of in and out, like for me specifically, like coming out, like I came out, I was out. And then there was this, like soon after that, there was an initial period of just like ecstasy, literal ecstasy. And then like periods of like, I think I'm gay. I can't feel it. Like, where did it go? Where did it go? Your words, like what happened? And then it would like kind of come back on. And then I'd be like, oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, I guess it is true. And then like back off again. And like, I think that's just a natural process for the psyche. It's a lot to change your entire sense of identity. And, it's like becoming a parent is a big one. Like for so many people, like you to just like the baby's born, you're not instantly like, oh, I'm a mother and I know exactly what that means. Like one part of you does, because there's the baby and you could have that baby, but it's a process before you just feel like that's just who you are, not like this big new thing, here's my daughter, here's my son. Like saying those words initially feels so foreign and like play acting or like,
Mm-hmm.
this is my son, really? Like, where
Right.
did he come from?
Right, right, right. And then existentially you connect with it and maybe it now feels authentic and now you're that plus 1 day. Plus two
Right.
days, plus three. And then the 3 day is different than when the first connection, right? So then just life is that it's the inevitability of change. It's the second you're there, next second, next moment, next moment. And I think that when you really come into that level of presence though, it makes you so grateful for each moment that you're in. You're like, well, this is what it is. It will never be here as much as I wish my pleasure would be so close right here. It's going to be different. And so like how can we learn to embrace that? And I think one of the beautiful things of people who've had a journey like you or me, all of us who have really like crawled out of holes to get to where we're at, we have such a understanding now that discomfort is a part of the process.
Hmm.
It just is. It just is. Especially, I don't know who told us that unlearning systems of oppression would be easy. It's not. It's full of mess and pain and discomfort. And, we want to watch the moments where we're pushing past our edge of tolerance, right? There'd be days where I would notice I'm getting past that when I'd say, fuck non-monogamy, this thing never works, like throw it away, like I'd be
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, wow, that's past my zone. I need a nap. I need some food. We'll start again tomorrow. Got it. Because like that thought now is not in my head at all in ways that it used to be so prevalent. And it's like anything else. Again, that practice. You got to learn. Okay, like that was my zone of tolerance, and I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna keep stretching, stretching, stretching. Any good athlete knows it's that edge point. We don't want to break the muscle, but we want to push, right? And so we know that, and so I think that gives a bit of understanding that there are going to be parts of this journey that are hard and difficult. And you're so right. We don't have to do the 5 grams of psilocybin for your first trip. I do
Right.
psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, and we do not start in that place, right? Because when we start with a lower dose, you build a safe relationship with the medicine and your body and the psyche and the places that you go, right? And so whether you're doing solo poly, whether you're opening up a relationship, you want to do it in titrated ways where you
Hmm.
can build that nervous system attunement and safety. Because those big doses, sure, they'll drop you off your face. You'll have no idea who your ego is. And then you have to reintegrate afterwards, after you had the orgy, the big scene, and maybe you were on drugs and you come back and like, how do I go to the office now? That's huge, right? That's when we get the rebounds. And then we're like, oh no, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Right? So it's
Yeah.
the beauty of taking the process slowly so that you can have that nervous system attunement, right? And build that safe both with yourself and the other people. Because you're doing it with
Hmm.
other people in community. And so I'm so grateful that you were able to really like speak to this full journey and give people a touch into a vision of what is possible over a lifetime. And I know there's still more for you here, but
Yeah.
you're inviting them into so much possibility today. So I'm really grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was my real reason for coming on here today is to, yeah, to show like an example, like this is possible. Like, and this particular example is not common or outwardly talked about a whole lot, and that needs to change. So, um, yeah, we'll include an email address with
Mm-hmm.
this episode if there are other women who are in a similar situation wanting support. I have been thinking about creating a system of support if there is enough interest. So yeah, so maybe that will happen, but at least just, yeah, offering a voice, hearing an actual human voice of here's
Mm-hmm.
the journey I've taken, here's where I am on it, here's where it's leading me, and just to know that it's possible, because it's really an impossible situation when you are in a loving, positive, straight-facing relationship that has been really good in most ways. It's a bind. It's a really complicated place to be, and especially if you're older and you've
Mm-hmm.
invested decades into
Oh
that,
yeah.
it's very easy to think like, oh, I guess I'll just, I just won't have this thing, or
Right.
I won't explore it in this lifetime, or,
Mm.
just kind of put it in a corner somewhere. But it's there. It calls
Yeah.
you. It calls
Yeah.
you, and it's so painful to not answer that call. So yeah, but when that relationship is actually worth it, worth going through this uncharted, difficult territory with. It's actually, yeah, I think I said this earlier, but there's a real advantage in that set of circumstances is poised for depth and growth if you can find your way there. It's like you just have to work at a different level of consciousness and intentionality.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about that, I'm finding so far, like it affects all my relationships.
Yes,
Like
it does.
my ability to communicate in, a casual work situation or one of my children or a friend is like I have so much more confidence, so many more resources, such a deeper, bigger understanding of like all of what's behind why people communicate the way they do and how to create agreements and how to create safety and consent and all these really important things that really all of us should
Yeah.
have in our
Yeah.
toolkit. And it's really like potent information that I watched a documentary on the Ashley Madison
Oh, yeah.
phenomenon.
Yeah.
And in that, and for anyone who doesn't know, that's a site, a cheating website, an app, a dating app for like married people who are like wanting to have a secret affair with someone.
There's an
And I
episode
believe
on this in the catalog with Paul Keeble, folks. Yeah.
70 million
Yeah.
users
90
and
last I checked in.
oh
Crazy. He
God,
came
that's
on. It was a fascinating episode, Coco.
the leader guy.
Not the leader guy, because he's been kicked out after, the
Mm.
Netflix and all of this. This was one of their current, like, CEOs who came on to talk about the research. And it was such a moment for me where I was like, do I want to align with this? But all of my friends were like, Nicole, the journalistic opportunity.
Yes,
And we had a
yes.
great conversation about infidelity around the world and how no one in France uses Ashley Madison because it's a normal part of the culture. And then the highest state in the United States, Utah.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is so
We
interesting.
knew that was coming, but I love that they have the data for it. I'm
Oh,
like, ooh.
that's amazing. Well, one of the guys on that program who was like high up in the
Yeah,
in the
it's
system
bad.
there, he said this beautiful, like true thing, which he said, this is just evidence of that people would rather cheat than talk.
Yeah.
That's potent. Like 90 million people would rather cheat than talk. Like, so what does that tell us about communication in our world and relationships and, relating? Like, we need to up our game as humans. I mean, as evidenced by our political world as well. Like, communicate. This is one of the kind of core things that I'm learning through this process in my own life is that it's always good to up your communication skills. There's no downside to that. And it helps every situation and every relationship. And, I'm a teacher, and as a teacher, I really like love modeling that. And I love modeling
Mm-hmm.
authentic communication to young people, young adults, out going out into the world. Like,
Mm.
here's another way you could do it. You could just be really like, you know, consensual and kind and thoughtful and open-hearted and
Right.
non-judgmental and like you don't create a safe space by saying this is a safe space, let's go.
Right,
You
right.
actually have to create the safe space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
and how do we do that? We do that with attunement, with energy, with communication, with consciousness. And I'd like to see a world where all of that gets raised. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's my part is to
Mm.
show up and do that wherever I can.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And you did a great job at that today. I'm so, so delighted that we got to have you on this show. Yes,
Thank
yes. Okay. Well, as we come towards the end of our time, I'm going to take a deep breath with you. And then I'll see if there's anything else you want to share with the listeners. Otherwise, I can guide us towards our closing question.
Well, if you're still listening, thank you for listening. Thank you
Yeah,
for
of
being here
course.
with us today.
Totally.
And I hope that you listeners received some piece of information or thought or knowledge or feeling that makes your life better in some way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a joy to know that our voice is rippling through the ears and the consciousness and the bodies of so many other humans out there.
It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Coco. So, the one question that I ask everyone on the podcast is, what is one thing that you wish other people knew was more normal?
Mm. I would say mixed orientation relationships.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, because some people think it's not possible. There's no way. How could we ever, right? And you're living proof that that is possible and pleasurable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say it's very much a work in progress for us,
Yeah.
but it's it's the process. It's there's no there. There's no like
Right.
other place to get to. It's like there is now. Now is now. That's all you get. That's all there is. And so if the process of developing your own path in relationship, whatever that may be, charting your own territory, relationship anarchy, whatever that means to you, that is, it's possible to enjoy every step of the way. It doesn't always feel good, but like in the
Yeah.
bigger picture of things, that there's bigger pleasure than just feeling good too.
Oh,
Like that,
yeah.
they both count. It all counts, but that the investment in your truth and then the investment in aligning with who you really are, whatever that is worth it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you responded to my educational newsletter, the one that I cried all the way through non-monogamy. Is that the one? Yeah, exactly. Yep, yep.
Mhm.
And it's so worth it. Young
Yeah.
yourself, like, keep going. Don't give up. Cry. Give yourself a little nap. Take a bubble bath. Come back. Come back to the
Yeah,
game. It's good. It's
definitely.
it's so, so worth it. Oh. Well, I'm so glad, Coco, that you came onto the show today. Thank you again for bringing your story, your bravery, all of that to me and the listeners today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Ah! And dear listener, if you want to connect with Coco, we'll have the email in the show notes below. If you have a similar story or are looking for community, we'll have that linked in the show notes below. So thank you all for coming. Dear listener, thank you so much for tuning in to Modern Anarchy. Thank you for sharing this episode with your friends, with your lovers, with your community. Truly, it means so much to me, and I am so grateful that you are here. If you are wanting to release jealousy in your non-monogamous dynamics and step into compersion and pleasure-filled connection, you can read my book, The Psychedelic Jealousy Guide, for free on my website. There you will also find so many other free resources, including worksheets on how to clearly communicate and set commitments and boundaries within your non-monogamous dynamics, and other ways to practice clear communication about your sexual desires so that you can step into your most pleasure-filled sex and relationships. So head on over to modernanarchypodcast.com to find all of those free resources, and I look forward to seeing you next week.